Patty Alfonso is an erotic priestess, an embodiment mentor, and creator of Embody Her, a private mentorship for women who are ready to live from the wisdom of their bodies and reclaim erotic innocence. Drawing on over 20 years' experience in embodiment, energy work, and body-based healing, she guides women into a lived integration of pleasure, power, and truth through a trauma-aware, deeply respectful approach to the body. Known as the Orgasmic Body Whisperer. That's a beautiful title. She'll get a badge. Patty bridges the erotic and the sacred in a way that invites women who appear outwardly successful, yet inwardly disconnected, to remember that nothing is missing and their bodies already know the way. Thank you so much again for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it. I think the first thing I have to ask really is, when someone asks you, what do you do, Patty? How do you introduce yourself? How do you introduce the work of an erotic priestess in a way that feels true and relevant to you?
Thank you for the beautiful question, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation. To be very honest, because that's what we're here for, is honesty and vulnerability. It really depends on where I am and who is asking the question. If I don't feel a sense of openness, then I just say I'm a life coach. Very easy and simple. But if I feel that there's resonance between me and the other person, I will simply say that I'm an erotic priestess, which usually invites people to ask, well, what is that? What do you do? And for me, the best way to explain it is that I empower people to be present with their sensuality, their sexuality, and their spirituality as one. The erotic priestess is really about connecting people to their body so that they can live their life fully present in their body and experiencing everything that life has available with and through the body.
That's really interesting, because as you were saying that, I was taken back to a recent memory. So I went to see a therapist recently for various things, and the reason I stopped going, and she was very good, and I'm sure she was very, very relevant to some people, is that everything we talked about and discussed started and stopped in the head. And I'm the sort of person, I carry my feelings very much in my stomach and my guts. I can almost feel and describe the color and the sensation of the feelings that I embody, that whole somatic element, I guess. And I wondered if you have found or think that we are tending as a society to live very much in our heads as opposed to our bodies.
100%. 100%. And therapy, traditional therapy and psychotherapy, psychiatry, all of that is about the mind. And we are trained, at least I was, from very early in my life, that the only thing that mattered was my brain and my intelligence and my grades, and everything was from the neck up. You know, we didn't talk about sex in my family. We didn't really talk about the body. And as I grew up, and experienced life, I found that I was missing an entire part of living and existing. So we do, in our culture, value everything that's connected to the mind. Therapy is all about, talking about the stories and the past and how they impacted. And there is value in that, but it can't be the only thing. I began my healing journey with an energy healer who was a holistic practitioner. And so we didn't just talk about the stories and the things happening in the head, but we also addressed emotions. We also addressed the body. We also addressed, everything. It was a holistic approach. And that's really what I love about this work, is that it's about everything in your life, not just functioning from the head up.
That's a really eloquent way of putting it. But it's fascinating, isn't it? Because a lot of our language, we sort of talk about the body, talk about somebody shaking with anger, frozen with fear, feeling love, and none of those emotions are something that live in our head. They're all things that we express. I mean, we have that whole freeze or fight, freeze or flight moment, don't we, where we're sort of stuck. I mean, we can't move because we're so afraid or nervous or scared, whatever. That's our bodies are doing that. And I just Yeah, I just wonder why we've got so disconnected. It feels like let me rephrase that. It feels like we're in an age where technologically we can connect with people all over the world. You know, you're in the US, I'm in the UK, we're talking, I can see you, you can see me, and we're having a conversation. Whilst yes, we can connect, it feels in many ways, that we're more disconnected than ever before. I just wondered if you agreed.
I 100% agree. I mean, it's fantastic that we can have this conversation across the ocean. I love that about technology, but I think that it has also really created a lot of disconnection. I wanted to address something that you said, which was brilliant. And let me just get back the words. You know, you can't talk yourself out of a trauma response. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
Yeah.
Now we also have flopping. You can't use your mind to talk yourself out of that. That is a response that your body is having to something that is occurring in your environment, right? We are calling it nervous system regulation, and so it is, but we're also really talking about embodiment and the body and how the body responds to stimuli. And those responses are created, you know, due to experiences in living life. And the only way to release them from your body is to stay really present with those responses, to be with the emotions that are arising, to allow yourself to feel them fully, right? If we have a response, let's say, you get bit by a dog when you are younger. This is a simple example. And as you grow up, you develop a fear of dogs, right? So a dog approaches and your body has that, oh no, that response, right? Like your eyes get really, this looks like for me, eyes get really big. There's that frozen sensation. And then you want to run from the dog. You have to allow your body to metabolize those feelings and those sensations. And that is not going to happen in the head. It has to happen through somatic work. And I feel like technology, all of the things that are happening in the world today, they're keeping us in that heightened state of dysregulation. Staring at your screen all day long and scrolling, and there's this constant hit of energy that your body is having a response to. So bringing us back into the body, bringing us back into sensation, into feeling and moving energy, that is going to be the key. And I've been doing this work over 20 years, right? And when I began, this wasn't really a mainstream conversation. So I know that we're doing the work. I know that as a society, as a culture, as humanity, we are moving forward. And I feel like there's still a lot of work for us to do, especially in the area of eroticism and pleasure and sexuality.
So how did you get from, I think in your words, a household where sex, intimacy, relationships weren't discussed very much, like most households, to be fair. My household was certainly never talked about. But how did you get from that place to where you are today? Because the two don't necessarily align, really.
Actually, they don't align, but I also feel like it was exactly the upbringing and the childhood that I needed to bring me to where I am today. So I grew up, like I said, completely disconnected from my body. The only thing that mattered was getting good grades and getting into college and getting a job. The body was never discussed. We had very perfunctory conversations about sex, not really, you know, in depth. This is how you do it, and you don't do it until you get married, and once you get married you do it with your husband. No talk about enjoying it and doing it for your own pleasure. It was just very very diminished. And so when I began my personal journey and I was in energy healing school, we needed to find a movement for our self-care practice. And now at that time, I was also aware that there was something missing, but I didn't really know what was missing. And when I went on the hunt for my movement practice for self-care, I actually ended up in an S Factor studio, which is pole dancing, sensual feminine movement.
As you do.
As you do. I'm sure that my, my teacher thought that I would find Qigong or yoga or something like that. But, I've always been a little bit weird and a little bit off, off to the side, doing things that are not normal. So in my first S Factor class, I was like amazed. And I watched my teacher do an introductory dance. And I knew instantly that is the energy that I'm missing. That I didn't even exactly know what it was because it was never anything that was discussed. But I knew that she was allowing something into her body that I did not have access to. So I was hooked immediately. And I have to say that as I began my sensual feminine movement practice, it became a spiritual journey for me. And as soon as I started moving my body and honoring the feminine body in the way that she is meant to move, the energy in my body changed instantly. My energy work, it just skyrocketed because I was diving deep into my womb and my pelvis and awakening that energy, which is creative and expansive and healing. So everything in my life started to change. And that journey, like I said, 20 plus years has led me to where I am today. I say that S Factor is the foundation of a lot of what I do because it is so deeply rooted in the feminine and feminine embodiment.
It's really interesting, a lot of the words you use there, because I think one of the challenges that I almost feel it's inappropriate for me to talk about this, but if it is, just say so, and I won't be offended. It almost feels that one of the challenges that women have had is that the patriarchy or the male-dominated society has almost claimed ownership of the womb and certainly women's pleasure, and almost this narrative that sex and eroticism and enjoying intimacy is very much something that belongs to men, and it's not something women should seek. And I probably explained that very badly, but does that make sense as to perhaps why some of the challenges that we have? There's very much a media narrative that women should potentially, not be very promiscuous or very. So, but when you look at the media, people are very much in minimal clothing and sort of sexy dancing in music videos or whatever. And it feels very much if you're a young woman growing up, and I've got a 19-year-old daughter. When she was young, it was very hard to sort of explain or try and interpret the messaging she was receiving and explain what it meant. Well, on one hand, yes, be like this and don't do this. On the other hand, be like this and do this. And ultimately, you want to say, well, it's your body, your mind, your pleasure to own and control as you see fit. But that's not really what I guess a male-dominated society has led with.
First of all, this is not inappropriate. And the conditioning that it might be inappropriate is exactly what has led us to where we are today. So thank you for vulnerability and for choosing beyond that initial energy that comes up and blasting through that to get to what is true. So thank you for that. You said so many wonderful and exquisite things, and you're explaining it beautifully. Yes, the patriarchy has done a phenomenal job at disconnecting women from their power source. The energy of eros, eroticism, orgasmic energy, it's the energy of creation. Literally, we all got here through that. We all got here through a woman's body. A woman's body is literally the portal from the universe and the cosmos and the divine into this 3D reality. There is no other way that a human being can get here. So I just wanted to lay that as a foundation, because you're correct. The patriarchy has disconnected not only women from that, but also men, the masculine. It has appropriated itself of this energy that only the female body has available. And it has cut us off from that power. And it's done it because it's power, because it's powerful, because I think the feminine, the full range of the feminine, if you don't know how to be with that energy and hold that energy, it can be scary to some people. So what do people do when they're afraid? They try to contain, they try to hamper it down, they try to push it aside, they try to hide it, they put a lot of rules around it. And the feminine is very, very unruly. But we have all been conditioned to be the good girl and to do what everybody else wants us to do. And then you also mentioned, you know, media and all of that. And wow, what a bunch of mixed messages we are getting. And you actually touched on this polarity and this dichotomy that women are constantly fighting against, which is the virgin and the whore. Yeah. So be pure. Don't do anything sexual. That is, you know, like I said, for your husband. But if you do, then you're a whore. And our media is saturated with sexual imagery, but then we're made wrong for being sexual. So we're using women's sexuality and men's sexuality as well to, you know, do marketing and sell things and draw people in, but then we're also cutting them off from that energy. And as a woman, it can be extremely confusing if you haven't been brought up with the idea that your pleasure is your power, that your pleasure is actually a prayer to the divine, that your pleasure and your desire are creative energies that you can use to create your life. You can use to create magic in your life. This is where, you know, sex magic comes from. Being in pleasure and offering it to the divine as a prayer for creation. It's really incredible, the number that the patriarchy has done. And I really want to name, you know, the patriarchy is a systemic problem. It is a system. I'm not talking about men or the masculine, because men and the masculine have been harmed by the patriarchy just as much as the feminine has. And we're really entering into a time of reclamation for the masculine and the feminine. We both have masculine and feminine within. This is not a gendered conversation. And the future is really about bringing both of those into balance within, so that we can emanate that energy and bring it into balance in the world. And we can see from what's happening in the world right now how out of balance we are with the masculine and the feminine. I think I addressed everything that you said. That was
really incredibly well to pick the questions that I already said. So the huge kudos to you. No, I 100% agree. And I do think more and more people are just looking around their neighborhood, their city, their country, the world, and thinking, it just doesn't feel quite right. And I think that they're slowly starting to wake up to that. And I think you said a couple of really powerful things, a lot of powerful things. One of which is that the reason we've got to this place is because through a lack of understanding or desire to understand, the easiest thing to do is just control. Well, let's just control what we don't understand. Then it can't hurt us, or what it won't get any bigger. And that's such a such a falsehood, because no time throughout history has asserted control in such a way ever been successful. and you do sort of hope that it comes into it. And the other thing I think, and you touched on this towards the end of what you just said, is that I've always thought, and even more and more intensely in the last few years, that our time on Earth is basically we are energy, and at the moment our form is the form we have, and you have that's the form that we're in at the moment. But ultimately we're just energy, and that energy never goes. It just evolves and changes. So when we pass away, when we die, our energy just goes somewhere else. And throughout our life, we can produce positive and negative energy. And I think during intimacy, during self-pleasure, during pleasure with somebody else, we're putting out this incredibly powerful energy into the universe. And I think that's one of the things that I hope people are becoming more accepting of, absorbing and learning how to sort of channel that energy to manifest positive outcomes. I think that's where we need to try and get to. That probably sounds very wishy-washy even to you, but that does that sort of make sense, that we need to sort of channel this positive energy to manifest more positivity for everybody around us?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Now, something came to me while you were speaking, which, I mean, yeah, I'll just say it. So we talked earlier about that disconnection from the body. And then what happens is, when you think of orgasmic energy or sex or creativity, that's all in the lower half of the body, right? It's around the second chakra, the womb area, your genitals. So the patriarchy, thinking in the head, stuffing down that energy has disconnected us from that part of the body, which has made the energy rise up to the head. That's where we all are right now. Yeah. So we have to descend deeply into the body in order to be able to channel that energy in a grounded way. So just connecting the what we were talking about before to where we are now, it's, like I said, grounding, descending into the womb, your pelvic area, your legs, your toes, so that you can actually run that energy through your whole body, right? You're receiving energy from the universe. It's diving deeply into the body, going down into the earth, and then back into the universe again, and then coming around again. And the other thing that came to me while you were speaking is about the earth, right? It's Mother Earth. If we look at how we've been treating Mother Earth, the feminine, that's an excellent example of how the patriarchy has defined and looked at the feminine, taking advantage of, pillaging, raping Mother Earth, not honoring the cycles, not honoring creation in that way. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation because it just ties to what you were saying right here. And in my work, I start the foundation of my work with my clients is around erotic innocence. It's around bringing the energies of curiosity, awe, wonder, passion back into your eroticism. Because if you're having a judgment around your eroticism, you're not going to be able to have as much access to it as you would like to have or as you can have. So focusing on those energies of curiosity, wow, what is this energy? What would it feel like to really be in my body? What would it feel like to experience life through all of my sensations? We have to start that journey within and getting really clear and grounded and centered in ourselves so that we can then, I think, responsibly engage in that energy with someone else. Sex creates all the time, whether you create another human being or you create different energies in the world. When you're engaging energetically with another person, whether you're engaging sexually, emotionally, you are creating something. So I think it's really important, especially in the realm of sacred sexuality, to be really present with your eroticism so that you can, share it and create something magnificent rather than destroy.
Fabulous, just fabulous. And I wholeheartedly agree with your point around nature, Mother Earth, etc. I think for a long time, humanity has almost seen nature as this thing, and then us. There's humans, and then there's nature. Not it's so insane. Not thinking, well, we're just part of nature. We're a small part of nature. If we weren't around, nature, the planet would get on very well without us, even better than it does today. We still have this thing that, yeah, I like to spend time in nature. I like to do things in nature. No, but you're part of nature. You whatever you're exuding or taking, you're part of that, really. And then the other thing you said, which I really liked, was the whole thing about being present. And that's one thing that really has changed a lot in the last 20 years in particular. So when I was growing up, there were no smartphones. So you were where you were. Sometimes you were bored, sometimes you were doing things, but you were where you were. You couldn't be anywhere else. Whereas now I watch a news report about a Taylor Swift concert, or a news report about the new Pope being announced, and everybody's watching that event through their smartphone. They're not present in the moment. They're watching it through a device, almost creating this barrier. And the same with intimacy. I make the analogy a lot of times between intimacy and food. And if I think of the experience of eating an incredibly ripe, juicy peach, I'm sitting outside, I can feel the sensation of the juice running down my lips, I can taste it, I can smell it, I can feel the warmth of it, and when I'm eating it in the sun, it just feels incredible. Versus holy, grabbing something from the fruit bowl, eating it while I'm on a call, it's the same thing, but the experience the way I've decided to honor that experience, whether it be eating a peach, kissing my partner, massaging my partner, whatever it might be, it's almost the way I decide to be present in that experience. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, 100%. I first want to name, between the earth and you being a part of the earth, these bodies that we have belong on this earth. They have come from this planet and they will return to this planet. Everything that is on this planet is actually for your body. If you didn't have a body, you would have a very different existence on this planet. You would not need clothes. You would not need food. You would not need a home. You would not need a car. You would not need money. So everything on this planet, everything in this reality is actually for your body. I don't know why we don't teach people how to include their body in all of those decisions. And then you talked about like Taylor Swift and going to a concert and experiencing it through their phone, right? They're all taking videos, and that is 100% cutting you off from the full body experience of being there. You know, you're first of all, you're bringing your energy all the way up to the eyes and focusing them on this technical device that isn't giving you the feeling of the music just landing in your body, the real visual presence of her show, which I've heard is extraordinary. Listening to the music, there's the filter as it's coming through the phone. So when we're doing that, we're literally cutting off a huge amount of the experience. I also want to name, I think Taylor Swift is a perfect example of how the patriarchy treats the feminine, because here is a woman, and listen, I don't know her personally, okay, but I witness her business and what she is creating in the world, and the things that I hear about how she treats her staff and her dancers and her employers, and the incredible amount of generosity. And there are studies on her business and how when she lands in a particular city, that city's revenue explodes. That city actually receives so much from her being there. And this is one woman, right, with a whole team and a company helping her to create that. And what do? We have been vilifying that woman since she came out on the scene. And kudos to her for not letting that stop her. I think she's an extraordinary example of, what women are capable when they're fully supported in their dreams and in their creativity, what they are capable of creating for themselves, for the people around them, and for the planet. So I hope I don't have to eat my words someday about her. You never know, because you never know. I think she's an extraordinary person, and I love what she's creating in the world. So that's just another example of the patriarchy and the feminine and vilifying it and trying to, put it down. But back to embodiment and back to, eroticism and sexuality. You were also talking about, enjoying delicious food and enjoying your partner. And this is all about living fully present in your body. Food can be orgasmic. A kiss can be orgasmic. It doesn't have to lead to, sex and penetration. Like, that is one part of the erotic experience. Your entire life can be an erotic experience. From the moment that I wake up in the morning and I stretch in my bed and I feel the sensation of the sheets on my face or my skin or my legs, I am waking up to sensation and erotic energy. And you can carry that through your entire day. Eroticism and orgasmic living and orgasms, they don't have to happen just in the bedroom. And can you imagine what the world would be like if we were all walking around just turned on and enjoying life and enjoying everything? Like, can you imagine the shift that would create on our planet and in the world? That's what I'm here for. Empowering women to live, and men as well. I also work with men, but empowering people to just live a full embodied existence on this planet, because that's what we're made for. These bodies are made for pleasure, made for it. It is our birthright. We just have to turn it on. We just have to turn on every single nerve ending in our body. There's like 8 million of them. They're all waiting. They're all waiting for pleasure. Your body wants to be in pleasure.
It's interesting, and I think part of the challenge is perhaps how we've come to understand or define sex. I think for a lot of people, if you ask them what sex was, a lot of heteronormative couples would say it's penis and vagina. That's sex. And I think which then becomes very performative and very target oriented. And just as an example, as I get older, my erections aren't the same as they were when I was 20. And they don't last as long, and maybe it's hard, they're perhaps harder to come by, etc. My partner might be going through perimenopause and menopause, and things feel different. So I think if you have in your head that, well, if we're not having penetration, then there's no point doing anything. I think if we could somehow transmute our understanding of sex and replace the word sex with pleasure, it would just feel much better. Because a lot of time, like say, we might want to give and receive pleasure from our partner or to ourselves, and that doesn't have to be penetration. Can be way down the list. It isn't something we have to do all the time. There's so many things we can do. Like say, you can look at each other, you can hold hands, you can stroke somebody, you can just talk to somebody, you can just enjoy a meal with somebody, enjoy a walk with somebody, whatever. All of those things can feel incredibly pleasurable and erotic, but we've created this narrative about, well, sex is this thing. And if we're not doing this thing, somehow I failed and I haven't performed. And I think that's a big thing. I think trying to almost take back what pleasure really means.
Yeah, 100%. This is also where, for me, the work with the erotic blueprints comes in. And this might be a whole other different show that we can do, or conversation. But this is exactly what the erotic blueprints can help people in. is expand their definition of pleasure. So for those of you listening that may not know, if you're familiar with the love languages, I like to explain the erotic blueprints as your love language, but for sex. So we've been trained in this very sexual way in sex and sexuality that's all about just like you were saying, penetration, penis, vagina, boobs. It's just very direct and very just straightforward and to the point, and slam bam, thank you, man, and we're done, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
It's like a checklist, isn't it? Right,
yes,
kiss, felt the boobs, went down on a blowjob, sex done, right, tick, 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 right, next, okay, let's go have a shower, and that's it.
Exactly. With the erotic blueprints, there's actually 5 different kinds of blueprints: the energetic, the sensual, the sexual, the kinky, and the shapeshifter. And this work is about expanding your definition, like you were saying, of what pleasure and sex can be, so that I'm highly energetic. So a lot of what I'm describing, I'm highly energetic and sensual. So what I'm describing and what you've been describing as well is very much in those realms where food becomes erotic, where energy in the world becomes erotic, where being in nature becomes erotic. So I personally think that we can all expand into different kinds of blueprints so that we can have a much wider definition, a much wider experience of what pleasure is. So I love that we're touching on this. And for me, again, the foundation of all of this lies in erotic innocence, in being curious about your sex and your sexuality, being curious about what's happening in your body and what turns you on in your environment and in the world. And then what turns you on with your partner, being curious about your body's partner. There are so many erogenous zones in the body. It is not all in the genitals. I mean, we have to descend into the body to feel everything in the body. I've had clients who have found, orgasmic energies right here on their wrist, spots like right here behind the ear or behind the knee, right? So your whole body is an orgasmic possibility pathway, right? Like you can just everywhere. So getting really curious about what turns the body on that is beyond the genitals.
We have to just unlearn so many things we were taught there, I think, because when we're younger and we start to explore, or with innocence, we start to explore innocently, invariably a parent or carer will say, "Oh, don't do that, that's dirty, take your hands away from that, don't do that." And if we, when we get to puberty and we masturbate because we like the feeling of it, it tends to be something that's very, very hurried, and oh my goodness, is somebody going to come in? I've got to make sure the door's locked. Oh my God, it's very, very quick, and it's certainly for men, it's very almost like a chokehold on the penis. It's just like, oh my gosh. And it's and I've talked to people before, and the stats show, I think something ridiculous, like 35% of women have never looked at their vulva in a mirror, or 70% of men and women have never spent an hour just exploring their own body to understand their own sensuality, enjoyment. So all these things that we're not taught them, but we're left feeling that somehow that's dirty or wrong. We shouldn't do that. That's something to, and it's almost having to unlearn those things before we can then recognize that no, okay, this is okay. This is something. And is that, do you find when a lot of the women that come to you, perhaps they've almost never been empowered to want to explore those sensations for themselves?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, there's so many yummy things that you said in this. A lot of women, 100%, they come to me and they've never actually looked at their vulva. And I remember personally when I was younger and I started exploring, right? You do. Hormones come into the body, puberty hits, and you're like, whoa, woo, that feels good. I remember experiencing quite a lot of shame after masturbation, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or this like feeling of feeling dirty, like that just, I shouldn't have done that. And I think this is part of what our religion and culture has done with pleasure, is disconnect it and make it wrong and make it sinful, right? I mean, how could you make the way that we all came into the world sinful? Just think about that polarity for a minute. And so a lot of the women that I work with, they've been on their journey for a little while. So they're more like in a yes state of, I'm ready to look at this and be with this. I'm ready to look at my vulva. There's been a journey that they've been on already, and they know that they really want to reconnect to this power. And you know, they're not satisfied in their marriages. They are in a time in life where they're transitioning. And so they're not who they were before, but they're not exactly who they are going to be. And they really want to access the power of their pleasure and their desire to create what they know is available. I lost track with everything that you said. Can you ask me the question again? I'm having a perimenopause brain fog moment where everything just disappeared.
No, and I think you answered very beautifully. Don't be any doubt of that. But do you think the and we might disagree on this one. Do you think the notion that, which I do think is a positive notion, that and maybe it's just been said, not really meant, but that women you can have it all. You can have it all. Do you think it is possible to be this high achieving businesswoman, mother, lover? Can women in particular have it all, or is that not the way it should be described?
Oh man, this is a complex question. The answer is yes and no, and I'll tell you why. We are all. We are the mother, the lover, the sister, the partner. We can actually embody all of those energies in any given moment. The thing is that we have been taught that we can be it all and have it all, and that we have to do it all ourselves. And we have to be superwoman all by ourselves.
Yeah.
This is where I think that our culture has really missed the mark, because, and I think where we are headed to in this moment. So the yes for me is in community. We can be it all and we can have it all and we can do it all, but we don't have to do all of that by ourselves. We don't have to carry that load all on our shoulders. This is where community comes in. I bring this back to like tribal times, when the tribe was in community, creating and holding the community. You know, it takes a village, right? Is one of our sayings, and there's a reason for that. But what we've done is that we've taken this we've just put it all into the single family household, right? We've moved away from family. We're not creating community. We're just like work and home, single family, mom and dad, and that's it. And in that sense, I don't think you can do it all. That is not the way we're meant to function. We're meant to have, lots of people around us, and everybody sort of taking turns and contributing to the community, contributing to the household. This is where the masculine also comes in to take responsibility for, also running the household. I heard this incredible quote. There's a documentary called Fair Play, and I don't remember the author, so I can't give her credit. But she was saying, in order for women to really embody their power in the world, the men have to embody their power in the household, right? And so creating community, having people that you can depend on, that you can count on, that you can take turns with, taking care of things, I think that's really, really important. The feminine's ability to, like I said, embody all of these different archetypes and all of these different energies is an incredible gift. And I think that we also have to afford the masculine the opportunity to embody all of those things as well. We can't cut ourselves off from any piece of ourselves. We have to be willing to be all of them. And we have to start trusting each other, building community with each other. We are interdependent beings. We're never meant to do anything alone. And I think that that's where we have failed the feminine, is in separating her from creating community. You know, community and connection and communication is a feminine genius, right? Our intuition, our sexuality, community, connection, those are all feminine values. And again, this is where the patriarchy has cut us off from those feminine values, focusing only on logic, independence, doing things on your own. And this is where we need to really marry those two things, coming into balance and union with those things to create a holistic system, a holistic environment.
It is crazy when you think about it rationally, that we're not a female-dominated society.
Well,
when it's women that literally create life, and have such power in their bodies and their wombs and their hearts and their emotions, whatever. It's kind of weird that we've
it really is. And speaking of wombs and power, you know, the wisdom, right? There's a term in the priestess world, womb wisdom. This is again about descending into the body, listening to that seat of creation, that seat of wisdom, receiving wisdom from the body to create life, to create your life. And I'm really not talking about just having babies. That is something that we've been trained in as well, that the way that we create the future is by having children, and that is one way, and it is absolutely an exquisite, beautiful way, but it's not the only way. You know, I'm someone who consciously chose to not have children because my gift to the world is the work that I do, and the work that I do with men and women to empower them in what they desire to do. So womb wisdom is just as important as universal wisdom. It's just as important as knowledge. It's just as important as learning. And it's not something that, you know, that we've been taught to listen to. I can only imagine, you know, a woman in the boardroom saying, well, my intuition is, my womb says, and how everybody would react, right? Where before patriarchy and before the way that we are now, the oracles were the ones that were guiding, right? It was the oracles of Delphi and the womb wisdom that was guiding society. It was in the before, right? When God was a woman, let's say, there's a beautiful title of a book where you were going to the feminine to seek healing and support. It was the priestesses that held the wealth for the community, so that they could provide for the community. And we really need to we really need to move towards the balance and the importance and the value of both the feminine and the masculine way of being in order to create wholeness, not one above the other or one being better than the other. Independence is very important. Rationality is important, but it is just as important as intuition and interdependence. Understanding is just as important as inner standing. So again, balance. And again, erotic innocence. If we approach everything with curiosity, wonder, awe, and passion, then we can break through judgments. We can break through the ego. We can break through superiority and really be in presence with everything.
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm 100%. And there's a couple of things. I think one is that, well, we've seen throughout history that at some point, men in particular have got scared, and that's why we had the witch trials, and it was generally healers and women that were giving more to the community than anybody else were. Yeah, well, whether it be Salem or over here, we had the same things over here. And do you think that monogamy is a useful social construct in that context? Because my thinking, and I have no evidence to prove this, but my thinking is that the notion that it takes a village to raise a child, and you mentioned it before, that when we were living a more tribal life, or we were perhaps more transient, and we were moving around, before we had the notion of property, this is my land, this is my house, this is my wife or partner. Before we had that notion of property, I have a belief that we were a lot freer, and we didn't consider ownership of our partners in the same way. And I have no evidence to prove that, but that's how it feels. And so I know generally society is very monogamy focused, and one partner, and that's how we operate, how we've been taught to operate. I just wondered, whether your feeling is that polyamory or non-monogamy is more natural, or whether we can get everything that we like in terms of giving and receiving and sharing from a monogamous relationship. That's a big question. Sorry.
No, it's a great question. Thank you. I love how tapped in you are, I have to say. There was a time, first of all, let me just say that whatever someone is choosing, I'm in support of that. If it's adding to your life and it's creating your life in a greater way, I'm in support of that. So I'm going to say a lot of different things right now. But I think everybody has a right to choose what works for them, as long as they're not harming anyone and they're not harming themselves. So let's go back to tribal times. When, there was a tribe and the men would go off to do the hunting and the women would take care of the tribe and be in community, and the grandmothers had an incredible part and a role in that tribe. Then the men would come back and they would have sex with as many women as possible, because this was about, creating life and adding more people to the tribe and making sure that the tribe continued. So there wasn't ownership in that way back in the day. And, I really do value monogamy. I sometimes wonder personally if one person can really, and I know this is a no, but if one person can really be everything for another person, I think that that's a big disservice. If you're putting all of that pressure on your partner to be your friend, your sister, your lover, your father, your mother, that's a lot of pressure. I think you need community in that way, whether it's, I'm forgetting the word. Whether it's, anyway, you need friends. You need friends and you need lovers in that sense as well. And I've seen some really beautiful polyamorous relationships where there is so much honor and love and respect between all of the parties in that relationship, where there's no jealousy or competition, where you're not trying to tear each other down, literally like a polyamorous family. And it's, you need to have done so much personal work to really hold all of that energy, because relationships, they can be very triggering. They're going to push your buttons. They're going to bring up all of your, issues around people and deserving and loving and being enough and all of that. So you have to do the work in order to really hold all of that energy when you're, in multiple relationships at once. So I'm really, I personally, I believe in both. If monogamy is really working for you and you have a relationship that is fulfilling to both parties, and it's work, right? You can't just assume attraction and assume that sexual energy that happens in the beginning of a relationship. You have to keep working at it and expanding in your sexuality. And if that is for you, then I think that that's beautiful. And if polyamory is for you, then I think that that is beautiful. I think, to me, that matches more around like the tribal energy of family, where there's more than one person. I think my first time that I witnessed that actually was in this show. I think it was in the 80s and 90s, called Big Love. Now it's, let's not get into like all of the drama around all of that, but I was like, wow, here's a man and he has lots of different wives and they all have a different role and they're all equally as important. And, there were issues, right? It was a TV show and it was a drama show. So let's not look at that. But I think that this is something that has existed for way longer than we think. It's just a lot more visible now. And what I appreciate about polyamory, when it's done ethically, that's important, ethics. There's a lot of honesty and openness and caring. And sometimes our current monogamous relationships aren't even doing that, So I think this is part of evolution, in my opinion. And I think that we could learn a little something from that evolution.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You're very well put. And when I've talked to people that follow a polyamorous lifestyle or part of that community, I think one of the big things I find, and actually in the same when I talk to people that self-define or self-describe as being part of a kink community, or however they describe it, I think one of the big things that I've noticed is there is a lot of communication and a lot of intentionality, if that's a word. They whereas I think perhaps sometimes in a marriage, maybe, or a relationship where I've been with the same person for 10, 20, 30 years, perhaps there's not quite, not denouncing everybody, but generally there's not quite the need to really be intentional and to have those conversations, to talk about what I like, what I don't like, what I want to try, what I don't want to try, what's a hard no, what's a maybe, all those things. Whereas in the, particularly in the kink or polyamorous community, not that they are very distinct. I appreciate that. There's certainly a lot more conversation around what I might want to try, whereas like we were saying before, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, sometimes the tendency is to be like, well, okay, here are the 5 things that we do,
right,
as part of our sex life. If we've done those, therefore that's it, really, it's finished. And we don't. But then that's quite hard if you've been in a relationship for 20 years and you both changed during that time. You both changed physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually, hopefully. It's sometimes quite hard to have that conversation because they say, and this is partly a joke, they say the 2 things that men don't want to be criticized about is how they drive and how they have sex. They don't. So if as a man or as a woman, you're hearing your partner say, "Yeah, that thing we've done, I don't really like it. I don't. It doesn't do it for me anymore. I don't feel it anymore. I want to try this." You immediately feel that you've failed, you've done something wrong, you're inadequate, and that's not what the partner's saying at all. But it's so when you talk to women in particular, perhaps who are interested in having that conversation with their partner, how do you guide them to, I guess, want to create a safe space, a non-judgmental space for that conversation?
I first have to ask, did you see those balloons coming up in your video?
No.
Oh my gosh. I was like, how did he, all of these balloons just like floated up in the air. You must have been looking up. But I
Wow.
thought that was fantastic given the conversation.
It must be what you're saying. They must have just disappeared naturally. I'm impressed. Never had that before.
And listen, maybe I just saw them. That happens sometimes too. But I love that you're bringing this in, and I want to hit a couple of different points that you brought up. So in the Erotic Blueprint community, we define kinky as anything that is taboo for you. So kinky also has a very wide spectrum in this community. And I love that, because if you're someone who is used to just doing it in missionary position, maybe changing it to doggy style is kinky for you, and that is perfect. So it doesn't have to go all the way into like the BDSM world. So just want to ease people's minds around like how we're defining kinky. And that's one of the things that I love about the community. Now, the question, I was distracted by the balloons. I think you mentioned
it was around almost, so when you want to, maybe as a woman in particular, have the conversation that perhaps the things you're doing now that you were doing 20 years ago aren't things, or maybe there's something else you might want to try, or different feeling you might want to evoke, or you listen to a podcast and you've heard about this, or you've talked to someone who heard about this. How do you almost guide them to create that safe, non-judgmental space so that the partner doesn't sort of, you're a pervert, or what do you mean I don't like that, or just sort of storms out? How do you help them with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I definitely work with, not only with the women that I work with, but with couples. And first, we start with creating safety within ourselves, which I do with movement and nervous system regulation. And then it's about, how do you communicate with your partner in a way that is going to be really rooted in yourself and your desires, and in a way that's going to create safety for your partner and for the relationship. And this is something that I really love working with couples on, because especially couples that have been together for a really long time, and maybe the sex is not as va-va-voom as it used to be, which I really want to normalize. That having a juicy sex life is something that we need to give attention to. Just like if you were having a garden, if you don't water the garden, the plants are going to die. So I do work with couples in watering their garden, and it starts always with your body and your desires. And then we open the conversation between each other, and we have an incredible like sex communication checklist that we can go through. And I like to make it fun, right? Talking about sex doesn't have to be this like horrible, terrible thing. And sometimes in partnership, there's a time of really like clearing away resentments and clearing away things from the past in order for that joy and that fun to arise once again. But it is possible. And it depends on the couple where it is that we start on that journey and in that conversation. And sometimes I just work with women and I work with them. And again, it's about creating safety for them. And you can communicate your things to your partner, but also there are times when the partner isn't able or capable of giving you what you need. And then that becomes a different conversation, because what we're looking for here is willingness on both partners to do the work to create that juicy sex life once again. If one partner is unwilling, then that is something that we need to look at. And yeah, it's working with the erotic blueprints in partnership and with women and men individually. It's also one of my favorite things to do. I'm all about anything erotic. Let's go there. Let's really release the shame and the judgment that we have around our eroticism, because I think that is part of what's going to change the world. This is usually like the last place that people look, which I think is very interesting, because I think if we started there, it would actually trickle into all of the other areas of your life, whether it's your career, your relationships, your sex life, your money. Your eros is the foundation for all of those things.
It's funny when you're saying that about how fulfilling and enjoyable erotic life empowers the rest of your life. I can remember, and this is going to sound really stupid now, but I can remember the first time I ever had sex, and going out the next day thinking, oh, I bet everybody can tell. Everybody knows. I had this glow that somehow there's a big neon sign over my head saying, not a virgin, not this big, it almost does, because sometimes when you have a very enjoyable erotic encounter, you cannot help but feel empowered and energized and joyful for the rest of the day or the rest of the week, rest of the month, for goodness sake. And you think back to it, quite smiles to yourself, and it's just such a wonderful, and you don't have that with anything else. If I have a great meeting at work, I don't sort of think about it afterwards with a quiet smile or think about how it felt, or I think it was a great meeting, but it wasn't the same as the feeling I had during that and after that and before that erotic encounter.
I'm so excited by this example, because this is exactly what I am and have been referring to. Imagine if everyone in the world could walk around with that sense. That is the sense of aliveness. Yes, like your whole body is turned on, your whole energy is expanded. You're walking around with an extra pep in your step. Imagine if everyone on the planet was walking around like that all of the time. 90% of the time, 80% of the time. I would go for 60% of the time. What that would actually create for our planet, that is available to you, and it doesn't have to happen just in the bedroom, with another person. You can generate and cultivate that energy within yourself. And when you do it with another person, and both of those people are really rooted into their own sexuality and their own eroticism, can you imagine?
That's the big thing, I think, is to recognize that, however you describe it, an erotic charge or feeling in touch with yourself isn't about necessarily being with somebody else or being in a particular place. So I can remember very, very vividly being on vacation in a small villa in Italy, and it was beautiful and the sun was shining, and so I woke up in the morning and it wasn't overlooked. I wasn't exposing myself, but I remember going outside naked and just walking on the grass and feeling the sun on my skin, and my goodness, and it felt, I hadn't really thought of the words before. This is a long time ago, and you're bringing it all back now, but it did feel very, very erotic and energizing and empowering. There words that maybe I was too scared to admit before, but that's what it felt like. And I wasn't with, my wife was still in bed upstairs, or my girlfriend, she was at the time, was still upstairs in bed. I didn't tell her about it afterwards. I didn't sort of share it. Maybe I should have shared it, but it felt, wow, this feeling of the sun on my bare skin and just my feet in the grass. It just felt incredibly, I guess erotic's the right word.
Erotic.
Thank you for bringing that memory back. I've not thought of that for 20 years.
You're so welcome. And that is still available to you today, right? I can feel like your body waking up, even just with the memory of it. And you're really describing the sensual blueprint, which is all about igniting the senses. And when I work with clients, and I love to share this on podcasts also, just to give your audience a little something to start playing with today, is activating all of your senses. And you just did a beautiful example of that. But for people who are maybe disconnected, or they're like, I hear you, what you're saying, but it sounds really foreign and I don't know how that would be, I would invite people to play with their senses, their sight, their smell, their taste, their sound, the sense of touch, and start looking at what are the things that, let's just say sight, for example, that when you look at them, they actually expand the energy in your body. They actually create pleasure in your body. For example, I am someone who really loves it when my bed is made. I have this exquisite bed with this exquisite soft pillows and comforters. And I just love the way that I have designed my bedroom. And so when my bed is made and the bedroom is organized and cleaned up and everything is in its place, and I walk in, my whole body relaxes. And it's just like, oh, just the beauty. I'm a priestess of beauty. The beauty, just the energy that it creates for my body brings me pleasure and relaxation. So if you took a sense every week and you just noticed in your surroundings, when you're driving, like what are you looking at that actually relaxes your body, that brings you pleasure? And then what are you looking at that actually creates contraction and tension? And this is how you start that relationship with your body. Your body is always communicating information through sensation. So this is a really easy, simple way to start that dialogue. And then the next week, pick a different sense. For example, the sense of smell. Like, what are the smells that actually make your body relax, that actually expand your energy, that make you feel good? And what are the smells that are like, ugh? And do that every week with a different sense. And then you can start building and creating your life in a way that is actually a contribution to your body. And then in turn, over time, this is where my work comes in, then you can start using that information to create your life, creating a life that serves you and your body and the pleasure that is available for you and your body. And this is what what we've been talking about, like sensual living, erotic living. Those are some really easy things that you can start doing now to start this in your life. And I love that you got to start it in the conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked for a bit then, because I was feeling quite emotional having said that. I thought, oh God, please don't start crying, for goodness sake. But it brought back such a I could literally feel the sensation as if it was this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing I sometimes wonder when I'm talking to somebody that's, I haven't talked to somebody quite like you before, but when I talk to somebody that's as in tune or understanding or comfortable in what intimacy means to them and what passion and what eroticism means to them, do you sometimes find it hard to find lovers or partners are on the same wavelength? Do they need to be on the same wavelength? It's almost, do you find it hard on that meeting of minds in a way, because you're sort of the way you are, you've had the journey, you have a priestess lineage, you totally understand, to my mind, everything that's important in life more than anybody else I've met before. Do you find it hard to find somebody to share on the same level, if that makes sense?
I do. It does make sense, is what I meant. And I don't know that I want to say that I find it hard. I have to be more discerning because I am an erotic priestess, because I am a healer. I have to be really aware whether or not the man that is showing up in my life is someone to create partnership with, or is someone who needs my services. So it's not hard. It just requires more discernment. And I find that if you're a healer or someone who, does this for a living, you're naturally going to attract people who need, healing and who are on this journey. So I really desire, right, to have a partnership where, and I wish this for everyone, to have a partnership where you're both contributing to each other, where you're both contributing to growth, and when you're both contributing to the expansion of your life. I've been blessed with, incredible partnerships, and I've been blessed with not so incredible partnerships, but all of them have served me and the person that I was with to grow and to learn and to expand. So I am more discerning. I am more, I just ask a lot more questions now that, you know, I've really fully stepped into this work, and I've been doing it for so many years. And what I mean by fully stepped into it is that I'm really focused on it right now. So I'm not necessarily looking for partnership at the moment, although I am open and available to that. But I'm really focused on the work that I'm doing in the world, and that's taking priority. So I'm not in a rush. You know, like I said, I'm not choosing to have children. So I'm not in a rush to find something. There's no time clock for me. I'm really enjoying my life. I love my work. I love my business. I have incredible, deep, meaningful friendships, and, you know, I love traveling. I mean, there's so many things that I love to do. So for me to allow someone into my life, it's going to have to be someone that adds to my life, not someone that is draining to my life. And so I wouldn't say hard. I don't want to say hard. I just want to use the word discerning.
No, and that was exactly what I thought or hoped you would say. You because you have such a powerful energy, you don't want somebody to drain that. You want somebody to add to it and multiply and expand it and all those things. Because the last thing you want to do is feel contracted by somebody else's aura and their presence. You need to be to be expansive and to explode and to sort of be able to share with. Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And hard was the wrong word, but discerning is a perfect word to use. Really. I've taken a lot of your time over this morning. I'm probably desperate to get on with the day, but I did want to say two things. One on which I didn't pick up on your point about erotic blueprints intentionally, because you made the offer and I recorded you saying this. You said that you potentially would be able to do another episode about that, and I would love. I wanted to give that space. And it's funny when you describe them, the erotic blueprints. In my head, I have this vision of them being written on the most beautiful scrolls and wrapped up and kept in this incredible gold and jewel-lined case that you sort of lift down. I think metaphorically, that's what it is. They are these incredibly, even from the few words you used to describe, these incredibly powerful. What's the right word? These powerful providers of knowledge, wisdom, energy, empowerment that are worth being very respectful of. And I really love to do an episode just talking about those. That was one thing. If you want to do that.
Oh my gosh, it would be a pleasure to do that. I want to acknowledge the creator of the erotic blueprints, Jaya, who absolutely did download this. I feel like it's 100% just the way you're describing it. It is a framework and a roadmap for erotic pleasure. And they are exquisite. I would absolutely love to come back and speak about those individually. They do deserve their own show.
Fabulous. And then my final question for now, I guess, then is, I'm not sure what I'm scared to the answer or not really. But do you have a vision for what your future holds? What the next, maybe sort of short term and long term, what that looks like for you?
For me personally, or for the world?
Yeah, for you personally, and I guess personally and professionally. Because I think you very much embody somebody whose professional is your personal. And your personal is your professional, if that makes sense. So I was wondering, are you a planner? Have you manifested what the future might look like? What do you think that might feel and look like for you?
Yeah, thank you. What a beautiful question. I mean, I have lots of visions for what I desire and for what I desire for the planet. And they are really interconnected. I mean, I do envision for myself, continuing to grow and expand this business and working with men and women and empowering them in their embodiment and in their life. I want to deepen in the Priestess path. I've just started channeling, so I'm really excited about really honing that gift for myself. As an oracle, that has been a part of my life forever, but to actually channel is a vision that I have. I would love an extraordinary partnership in my life. What else? I have so many things that I desire for the world. I've always my through line has been embodiment. My through line has been the body. You know how people have different causes, they want to save the whales, they want to save the planets. I want to empower our bodies, because our bodies are these magnificent creatures, playmates that we get to have on this planet. And my vision in transitioning from the body as this thing that you have to take care of, that's a problem, that's an issue, to a global perspective around the body being another creative source for you, right? A teammate, a playmate that you get to create your life with. That's something that I envision for the planet, as well as, removing, releasing, letting go of all of the judgment around sex and sexuality, balancing the feminine and the masculine. There's a bit of a trend out there trying to make the feminine better than the masculine. And I really want to, just like we're talking about balance, about both of them being equally valued. So those are just some of the things that I see for myself and for the future. They're not big things. One thing that I would love to name is, I have this vision of like traveling to sacred sites around the planet, pilgrimage with all of my priestess allies and all of my delicious friends, to just really honor all of the sacred sites around the planet. That would be something that would be so juicy and so delicious for my life. So
perfect.
And anything better, that or better, universe, that or better. I'm open to receive.
Thank you so much for your time. You're very inspirational.
Thank you.
Yeah. I really need to listen back now and just absorb what you've said, because there's so much there. So, and I'm really excited we're going to get to talk again. I'll let you enjoy your day, and and have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I would love to connect with your audience. People can find me at pattyalfonso.com. I love to offer a private session for podcast listeners, because Erotic Innocence isn't really about the continuous consumption of information. It's about full body presence. And I would love to connect with your listeners one-on-one, where we can really go deep into what it is that you desire to create. So you can get that information at pattyalfonso.com/innocence. I'm sure that we can put that in the show notes. Again, 100%. My name is Patty Alfonso. Thank you so much, Andrew, for this just incredibly rich and deep conversation. I look forward to being with you here again to talk about the erotic blueprints.